The rain came down like it had a grudge against the world, slamming into the empty street with a force that rattled windows and soaked everything it touched. Daniel Harper pulled his thin jacket tighter around himself as he hurried along the sidewalk, his worn boots splashing through puddles he couldn't afford to replace. Every step felt heavier than the last, not just from the storm, but from the weight he carried inside. Another long day of odd jobs. Another night wondering how he'd stretch a few crumpled bills into groceries for the week. Another reminder that being poor wasn't just about money, it was about how invisible the world made you feel. That was when he heard the crying. At first, Daniel thought it was the wind, howling between the buildings. But then he heard it again, small, frightened sobs cutting through the roar of the storm. He stopped under a flickering streetlight and scanned the road. Across the street, near a bus stop with a shattered glass panel, he saw two small figures huddled together. They were little girls. Twins, by the look of them. Maybe 6 or 7 years old. Their hair was plastered to their faces, their thin dresses soaked through, their arms wrapped tightly around each other as if that alone could keep the world from swallowing them whole. Daniel's first instinct was fear. Not of the girls, but of what helping them might mean. People like him didn't get the benefit of the doubt. A poor, scruffy single dad approaching two young girls in the middle of the night? He could already imagine the headlines, the accusations, the way his life could fall apart even faster than it already had. But then one of the girls looked up, her wide eyes catching the streetlight. She locked eyes with him, and her lip trembled. "Sir," she called softly, her voice barely audible over the rain. "Can you help us?" That was all it took. Daniel crossed the street without another thought. He crouched a few feet away, keeping his hands visible, his voice gentle. "Hey there. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. Where are your parents?" The girls exchanged a look, identical fear mirrored in identical faces. "Our dad," one said. "We got separated. The car broke down, and he went to get help. He told us to wait here, but it's been a long time." Daniel glanced up and down the empty street. No cars. No people. Just rain and darkness. "What are your names?" he asked. "I'm Lily," the girl on the left said. "And I'm Lucy," the other added, clutching her sister's hand tighter. Daniel swallowed. He thought of his own son, Noah, asleep at home with a neighbor keeping an eye on him. Noah was 8, just a year older than these girls. The image of Noah alone in a storm like this made Daniel's chest ache. "All right," he said firmly. "You can't stay out here. You'll get sick. Do you know your dad's phone number?" They both shook their heads. Daniel exhaled slowly. "Okay. Here's what we'll do. I live a few blocks away. It's warm and dry. We'll get you out of the rain, and then we'll figure out how to find your dad. Does that sound okay?" The girls hesitated, clearly taught to be careful of strangers. Then Lily nodded. "You look like our dad," she said simply. "Tired. But nice." Something twisted in Daniel's chest. He stood, holding out his hands. After a moment, they took them. Daniel's apartment was small, barely more than a box with peeling paint and furniture he'd found on the side of the road. But it was warm. He wrapped the girls in old towels, gave them dry shirts from Noah's drawer, and heated up soup on the stove. As they sat at the tiny table, steam rising from their bowls, the girls' shoulders finally relaxed. "Thank you," Lucy said between spoonfuls. "You're really kind." Daniel smiled faintly. Just doing what anyone should. He didn't say what he was really thinking, that kindness often felt like a luxury for people who were already comfortable. That people like him usually had to choose survival over generosity. After the girls finished eating, Daniel let them sit on the couch and watch cartoons while he tried again to think of a way to contact their father. He called the non-emergency police line, explained the situation, and gave his address. They told him someone would come by soon. While they waited, Lily noticed a framed photo on the wall. "Is that your family?" Daniel followed her gaze. The photo showed him, Noah, and a woman with warm eyes and a gentle smile. "That's my son," Daniel said softly. "And that was my wife. She passed away 3 years ago." "I'm sorry," Lucy said quietly. Daniel nodded, surprised by the lump in his throat. "Thank you." A knock at the door came sooner than he expected. Daniel's heart pounded as he opened it, half expecting suspicion, handcuffs, questions he wouldn't know how to answer. Instead, a police officer stood there, rain dripping from his hat. "Sir, we're here about the 2 girls." "They're inside," Daniel said quickly, stepping aside. Behind the officer stood a man in a dark coat, his face pale with worry. The moment his eyes landed on Lily and Lucy, his composure cracked. "Girls," he rushed forward, dropping to his knees as they ran into his arms. "Oh my God, I've been so scared." Daniel watched from the doorway, relief washing over him. This was good. This was how it was supposed to end. The man stood and turned to Daniel, emotion shining in his eyes. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick. "Thank you for taking care of them." "Of course," Daniel replied. "Anyone would have done the same." The man shook his head slowly. "Not everyone would have." They exchanged names. The man was Jonathan Reed. Daniel didn't recognize the name, and at the time, it didn't matter. What Daniel didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that Jonathan Reed was the judge presiding over his upcoming court case. 2 weeks later, Daniel sat in a hard wooden chair in a courtroom that smelled faintly of old paper and polish. His hands were clenched in his lap, his mind racing. He'd been accused of stealing construction equipment from a site where he'd been working temporary shifts. He swore he was innocent, but he didn't have money for a good lawyer, and the evidence didn't look good. This case would decide everything. If he was convicted, he could lose what little stability he had left. He could lose Noah. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Daniel stood as the judge entered. When he looked up and saw Jonathan Reed behind the bench, his breath caught in his throat. The judge's eyes met his, and for just a second, recognition flickered there. Jonathan Reed maintained his professional expression, but something had changed. Daniel could feel it. The proceedings began. Witnesses spoke. Evidence was presented. Daniel's public defender did her best, but Daniel could see the uphill battle written on her face. When it was Daniel's turn to speak, his voice shook. He told the truth. About his work. About his son. About how he would never risk everything he had left by stealing. The courtroom was silent when he finished. Judge Reed leaned back slightly, his fingers steepled. "Mr. Harper," he said slowly, "before I render a decision, I want to address something." Daniel's stomach dropped. 2 weeks ago, on a stormy night, the judge continued, my daughters were lost and frightened. A man with very little to gain and much to lose chose to help them. He fed them, protected them, and expected nothing in return. The courtroom stirred. That man, Judge Reed said, his voice firm but emotional, was you. Daniel's eyes burned. I cannot, and will not, let personal experience override the law, the judge went on. But character matters. Actions matter. And when evidence is circumstantial, character can illuminate the truth. He paused, then spoke the words Daniel had barely dared to hope for. The charges against Mr. Harper are dismissed. The sound that left Daniel's chest was half sob, half laugh. He dropped his head into his hands as tears streamed down his face. After the courtroom emptied, Judge Reed approached him. Mr. Harper, he said gently, thank you. Not just for my daughters, but for reminding me why justice must always be tempered with humanity. Daniel nodded, unable to speak. Weeks later, Daniel started a steady job, one Judge Reed had quietly recommended him for. Noah slept easier. The fridge was fuller. Life wasn't perfect, but it was lighter. One evening, as rain tapped softly against the windows, there was a knock at the door. Lily and Lucy stood there, smiling, holding a small handmade card. Inside, in crooked letters, it read, "Thank you for saving us." Daniel smiled,